What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Two Commoners podcast. As you can see, I got a name tag.
Are you going to hold that the entire time?
Nah, I think I'm going to put it down about now.
Okay. We got another special guest with us today on, it's Thursday today. You'll see this on Monday. His name is Grant Riemenschneider. Hails from Richmond, Wisconsin. Grant, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Introduce yourself.
You might want to bump your chair up there a little.
Why? Oh, because I look short?
Yeah.
I don't need to look shorter.
It's because of the mic stand.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, anyways, my name's Grant Riemenschneider. Like Hunter said, I went to high school with these two goons here, and I currently attend Hamlin University, where I'm going to be a senior, and I'm a marketing major. And I'm just gonna kind of chime in whenever these guys are, done arguing here.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to keep you in the conversation as much as possible.
That's what we do here. We keep people in the conversation, in the loop, included.
Yep.
You're our guest, bud.
I love being included. Yeah.
Our past few guests have been awesome. They really enjoy their time here.
Like John the first time,
Like
John the second time.
No, we've had some good guests.
No,
right?
I can't say there's a conversation that we've had with a guest that I haven't liked so far.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, so we got a few things on our plate today. We're going to talk about sort of the whole anti-racism movement, and
I don't like the name, to be honest.
don't like the name.
No.
Yeah.
What?
I said, yeah, I don't like the name.
Well, anyways, you'll see what we'll talk about.
Yep, and then we'll talk about some more coronavirus stuff, and then
Fun.
probably wrap up with some election stuff because we're under 100 days now.
Okay.
And it's only something new is going to happen every day.
So I don't forget it before we get into the real discussion. Can we just kick it off with, did you guys see Bernie Sanders' tweet about these 100 days are going to be the most crucial days in American history?
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Most crucial 100 days in American history.
I disagree.
It's a political move, yes.
Yeah. They're very important for both parties, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna. And plus, this year has not been anything normal whatsoever, so
Yeah.
you got to expect everything abnormal in the political scene.
Yep.
Like, it's going to be. And you kind of got to see how it's play out. Like, there's going to be a new story every day. Probably Donald Trump did this, or Joe Biden touched this kid somewhere, Like, you just never know.
Or more likely...
You wanted to get that one in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had to.
Yeah.
or more likely just Joe Biden, slipping into dementia entirely, and then, not being
The
able
dude
to...
We're
can't
just
form
going
two
to avoid
sentences.
this altogether because we bring this up every episode.
I mean...
Is he wrong, though, Hunter?
He is wrong.
Well...
You've seen him make a complete sentence more than 2 times?
Have I seen Donald Trump make a complete sentence more than 2 times?
Yes. In fact, he
It's the way he goes about it. I mean,
let me put it this way,
We
Hunter.
don't need to
Donald Trump forms the same sentences 6 times before he says a new
yes, he does.
sentence.
He definitely repeats himself.
There's something wrong with that to a degree. I don't want that sort of thing as president, but that's the exact opposite problem Joe Biden has, where I feel like he can't get the thought out once. Sometimes I think he forgets where he is, and you can.
I wonder if he remembers the 5 words still.
Well, I mean, Joe Biden said, you know the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The thing.
I just had my own, the thing moment there, but
Yep.
you get the idea.
Mhm.
All right, now that we're done groveling and graveling about Joe Biden and Trump's mental decline.
Yeah. Let's jump in. So you said you didn't like the term. Why?
That's loaded. Can we, before we answer that question, can we talk about what we're referring to with the anti-racism movement as a whole?
Yeah. Well, I'll pull it up for you here quick. Just give me a second. Well, the anti-racism movement, coined by the author of the book. Where is it? Oh, yeah, here it is. An anti-racist idea is any idea that suggests the racial groups are equal in all their apparent differences, that there is nothing right or wrong with any racial group. Anti-racist ideas argue that racist policies are the cause of racial inequities. So that would be the fundamental basis for the group and their movement.
So it's about equality of outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I understand why the issue is raised, because normally when we talk about systematic racism that still lingers in the system, what people are referring to is the inequality that has resulted from all the policies that used to be really racist, like Jim Crow and all that other stuff. And I've heard most liberals concede that the rules now are generally fair when it comes to like getting hired with like laws against discrimination and stuff like that. But the issue that I understand that where this movement kind of comes from is, since a lot of black communities were kind of left behind and less members of the black communities made it to the middle class, they basically need that economic inequality addressed, because you can make the argument that like redlining and gerrymandering and all that stuff that happened back when the rules were still very racist still impacts the black community today.
Mm-hmm.
And because of having like a further back finish line, or starting line, if you will, makes the playing field unfair.
Yeah.
And I agree with that to an extent. I'd like to see more infrastructure being used like in those sort of areas. But I guess the jump for me is that defunding the police is basically the big move with this movement. Like, I feel like the solution and the problem do not match up. I feel like going after the police is not like the best way to go about this. I understand the idea is cut funds away from the police department, then move them to like schools and education infrastructure and stuff. But I really don't think it's that simple, because I think you're going to be pouring more money into that infrastructure if the crime rate doesn't go down. And I don't think the crime rate will go down. In fact, in a lot of major cities right now, the crime rate's going up.
Well, yeah, you're going to see that first because there's a lot of unrest. And I think that comes with the territory.
Well, I don't know. A lot of these cities that are trying to implement policies that are actually going to defund the police or getting close to that also implemented policies where they let go a lot of prisoners right at the beginning of COVID. Now their crime's going up. Then they're on the defund the police thing, and the crime rates are still going up. And yeah, some of that has to do with civil unrest, no doubt. But like, they keep doing these policies that almost seem to clash, because and the crime rates are going up, and they just keep doing things that I think will feed into that problem. How many policies can directly like lead to an increased crime rate before it's too much at once? Wouldn't you think that if you want to
Well, I would say I don't necessarily think that defunding the police is going to lead to an increase in crime rate. You're going to see the increase of a crime rate immediately, but you're not. I think if you put the money into better social areas such as education and infrastructure, it's going to balance itself out. You're going to see it probably a leeway right away, but I think over time it fixes itself. Because you're given better opportunities, a better education system, more housing opportunities. You have a less militarized police force. You have a police force that, like, only 8% of police force, I'll give Minneapolis for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think sort of this tension between Minneapolis and their police officers is that only 11% of the officers live in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, they live in the suburbs.
Yeah, they don't. There's no relation. There's the bonds.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
If the point here is that it would be better to have cops from the city, that way there's more of a sense of community, I 100% agree with that point.
But and the communities are also damaged because there's so much money being poured into this force that has no really. They feel no responsibility to have these tight bonds with their community.
Yeah. Well,
all this money that's being poured in could be going elsewhere to fix a broken education system.
I guess where I just get a little lost on this whole like solution to this problem is that I don't think these infrastructure investments will pay off unless the crime rate drops alongside with them. Because if the crime rate stays high, the infrastructure won't last. You're going to be spending more money in this area, because like that's another thing. Like good teachers is part of the infrastructure, and good educators,
Mm-hmm.
and people who will actually improve upon the community. Like these good workers, a lot of them have other options because they're good at their jobs and stuff. So even if you increased a lot of the infrastructure, especially with education in an area, what would what's going to make skilled educators want to live there and teach there if the crime rate hasn't been taken care of?
No, I think you got a fair point, but I do think a lot of those educators see firsthand what they're not just living in the midst of crime. They're teaching these people, trying to make better people. And I think if you find some way to relate to the people that you're teaching and sort of find some comfort in trying to groom them to be men or women.
I mean, I agree with all of this. Like, does the argument just go back to the police force should care more about the community and it should be a more community-centric thing?
Yeah, I think that, but I also think that the funds necessary that make them so militarized isn't necessary at all.
I mean, it depends on the area. Like, I guess my only thing is there's a lot of protests that have gone to like a riot level that have been going on for a while here. And obviously, it does make me like very nervous about the country we live in when I see like tear gas being used willy-nilly on protesters because I don't like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like some of these people are throwing like fire bombs into federal buildings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like how long do you let this stuff go on before you?
Yeah.
Because I'll let you say something in a second, but it's my bad. I'm sorry. It's not just like a people versus the government thing. There's other people who are being like trying to live their lives and they're kind of being disturbed by a lot of the chaos that's going on in these cities. And a lot of these people who live in these communities still face a lot of the like lower class struggles that the people protesting are experiencing. And anyone protesting peacefully is automatically put in the same boat as the people trying to escalate it. And I guess my whole thing is like I don't really see what's so bad about trying to bring the people who are escalating it to justice. And when there's a big masses of people crowded around a federal building, your options on how to do that become narrow.
What people surrounding that government building? I get the people that are obviously doing something wrong when it comes to firebombing and stuff like that. That is, we agree on that. But a wall of suburban moms or a wall of veterans.
Some Karens?
No, like they all wear yellow shirts and they all lock arms and they just stand there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they got arrested.
And they got arrested and tear gassed.
Yeah, like
that shouldn't be confusing.
I mean, it's not. But the thing is I'm also only hearing stories when I hear these things. Like, you know what I mean? I only know what the police tell me, and then I have to remember that the police have an agenda, and then I only know what the media tells me, and I got to remember that the media has an agenda, and then you have the word of the person being arrested, and if they were doing something wrong, they're not going to admit it. Like, I don't know, it's just complicated for me as a bystander to look at it and get clarity of information to know exactly what side to take.
Okay, so let's say they were tear gas. Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
What did they do to deserve that? What would, in your opinion, be grounds for that if you're just locking arms?
Well, based on your story, nothing. But all I know is the story.
Were they out past curfew? Or like, what was the
if you're past curfew.
No, I'm saying, but they're violating the city instructions. Like, say what Jacob Fry did from Minneapolis. You cannot go out, otherwise there will be consequences. And maybe that. I mean, I'm not saying that's a consequence because that should be, because I do not agree with tear gas. Obviously, that's pretty bad to do to somebody, especially innocent people like that. But like, at the same time, how do you control these mass groups of people that are like doing that? You know, like who's in charge of that? Like Jacob Fry, for example. I personally met him before. He's came to one of my classes and talked to him. He's kind of he's
very young.
He's very young. Yeah, he's he's a pretty nice guy. He's pretty appealing to most people, and he's very left, which is also Minneapolis-like, was what you expect. And just the way that he like handled the entire situation of Minneapolis, like up front. Like I remember some BLM protesters came up to him in Minneapolis. He's like, Jacob, do you want to defund the police? And he goes, no. And then boom, the Black Lives Matter movement just completely derails him and just gets like cancels him almost.
Yep. That's a good point.
So it's like, how do you handle that as like a leader of a major city in America? And that's going on in more cities too, obviously. It could spread from Minneapolis just out of that one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Like, if you're out past curfew, you are, like you said...
You're at your own risk, you know? Like,
yeah, but I don't think that it requires force.
Okay, so with the story about the moms linking arms, like I said, don't really know anything about that. I mean, that could easily be a police abuse of power, and based on how you described it, it probably is. And obviously when you have a police force that has militarized capability, there's going to be like misfires, and those are like really awful, and people making those decisions should be held accountable. But like, do you think tear gas, do you think there's ever a time for it to be used? It's basically what I'm asking.
Well, no, it's considered a war crime by the Geneva Convention, so no, I don't.
Well, the reason they called it a war crime is because they basically want that out of combat. Like, it's you.
But
Like,
these aren't combat zones.
but that's the thing.
They kind of made it though.
Tear gas doesn't like kill people either. Like,
No.
we're not the only country in the world that uses tear gas as riot control. Basically, any country with like some sort of riot police, which is like all of them, all the developed ones at least, use tear gas or some sort of gas. In fact, I'm not even sure if it's accurate to call it tear gas because I don't know
It
what.
is. A doctor actually questioned that. Yeah. Use of tear gas in warfare. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Like, obviously, when I hear stories like Trump gassing people to get to a photo op, it sounds like, from a fiscal standpoint, a waste of money to do all of that. It sounds pretty awful. It sounds selfish and narcissistic and counterproductive to what we should be doing as a nation right now, which is coming together.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Trump's gotten away with a lot of crap lately that's definitely made me question, like, me kind of liking him in the beginning of the presidency. That's why right now I'm not sure if I'm even going to vote, because I'm pretty unhappy with the state of things right now. But I don't know, man, when a lot of people doing the protesting, they're not even just talking about what type of policy changes they want. Like, it's very commonplace for these to be hijacked by anti-capitalist people who kind of just want to see the United States collapse.
It's not just them, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's people on both sides want a civil war. The extreme right and the far left both want civil wars for different reasons, and they aggress each other in situations where they can be aggressive, which is basically like all these protests now, because like mayors are telling their police to stand down, and that's another thing. Do you think telling the cops to stand down did the protesters any service in the long run? Because then they protest for a while and shit gets rowdy, and then the cops have to come in and do something big when they finally come in and regain control. You make the argument that it's more irresponsible to do that, what they've been doing.
Mm.
I mean, what do you think of that, Grant?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean, do you agree with, like, the mayors telling cops to stand down and stuff?
yeah, if you're a cop, I mean, as a cop, you have to obey your mayor, probably. I mean, like, is the mayor's place to say that, though?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm getting
I don't
at.
know. Yeah, it's kind of a toss-up for me because cops or most cops are trying to do right for their cities and protect their citizens, but at the same time, you have the others that are saying, no, they're all bad. And, like, if you were a cop right now in today's day, how crappy would that be if you were a cop right now in a big city? Like,
For
and
sure.
Can you imagine that? Like, a good one, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
Like most are. But, didn't mean to, like, arguably that, but, like,
No, it's okay, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine like that. Like, just everyone hating you, hating your guts, and there's protesting against you no matter, like, what you do, and what you're trying to solve, and you're trying to save lives here. What's your take on that, Hunter? I'm kind of curious.
See, I love the good officers that are speaking out on this, and there have been a lot of them, and a lot of them are being brought to light. A lot of them have done videos speaking out of their opinions on all this. What I will say, though, is it's a flawed system they have, and we've talked about this with police unions. There's no accountability.
Yeah.
And I think even if we do, and I agree with you, there are a lot of good cops out there, and even though your intentions are good, they're human.
Yeah, you're not.
They're human.
The train isn't nearly enough for what they're.
And
they're
not trained well.
Yeah,
I won't say they're not trained well. They're not trained enough.
Yeah, it's
compared to
like 8 months,
European countries.
Yeah.
And it's more focused on firearm training than de-escalation, which is a problem. So that I think there are a lot of problems within the system that need to be addressed. I'm not gonna shit on cops here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what a lot of people like on the far left will do though. Like saying
I think it's anger. It's boiling anger.
It is. Yeah.
Because
it definitely is.
It's been decades since this has been going on, and nothing has been done to address this. And these police unions just get more and more power, and you have this blue wall of silence where no cop brother will speak out against another cop brother, or sister, sorry. Anyway, what I'm saying is, the system's flawed. It needs to be fixed. I'm not going to shit on cops. I think there are a lot of good cops.
Yeah. My problem with this is, like, so, you know, Obama and Biden, like, they're in office for 8 years. Well, how come they didn't do it? Because it was a problem back then, obviously.
Yes,
it's been a problem for very long.
It was, and I will say this.
You're saying
So,
that tipping
Biden
point?
introduced the bill.
Yep. The crime, yeah, you did. And it was Republican controlled in a second term when a lot of this really started to came to form.
Mm-hmm.
The Republican controlled Senate and House. So you can sign an executive order, but do you think that's going to get passed, or do you think that's going to get vetoed? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know, he got away with a lot of other executive orders I think the Republicans don't like.
like what?
I mean, amnesty, for one.
Huh?
He did an executive order for amnesty.
It's true. But I think something like that is a political tool is not something he would get away with.
How is that like any less of a political tool than the other thing, though? I just don't understand what separates an executive order on the criminal justice system from an executive order that like Obama did, because he did do a decent amount of them, and some of them were quite controversial.
Yeah.
Why did the Republicans not veto those? Like, what needs to happen for an executive order to be vetoed?
You have to have the supermajority, I think. So you have to have, what is it, 70-something votes in the Senate for it to be vetoed? And it turned down by the Supreme Court. I will look it up just to be sure.
I don't know, like, obviously I don't like the whole thing of, like, Obama didn't do anything of it. I personally wouldn't make that argument, but isn't it interesting that Biden isn't even mentioning, like, his ties to the crime bill and stuff? Like, he's been pretty silent through this whole defund the police thing. Anytime I've seen him comment on it, he kind of just, like, roundabouts the issue. Basically, it's like, oh, we're on your side, but then doesn't talk too much about any sort of solution.
Well, he's not the president.
He also wants the votes.
Yeah, and he doesn't need to do anything. Honestly, he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not saying he needs to be doing
He needs
anything.
to be
right
there.
now. He doesn't need to do anything or to even, like, be there on the scene, because I understand he's, like, hiding in his basement or whatever. But I don't know, man, it just seems pretty weird that a lot of the anti-police stuff is against a bill pitched by a Democrat, directed at, like, Democrat-controlled cities mostly, where this is the biggest issue.
Exactly. Going on that, if you see that reason, I think it was like a week or two ago, that black man in Milwaukee holding a Trump sign got shot.
Yep, I did see that.
Yeah, like, so that kind of, like, stretches everything. Like, Black Lives Matter, but his doesn't? Or, like, what's your take on that?
That's true. Yeah.
It's a fluke in the system, but, like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not right. I mean, the people are dying, and, like, only so many people are getting media coverage of them dying, obviously. Like, obviously that was probably like a Fox News, and then you'll see other, like, more, other, like, people die from other things and in protests, and you're just not going to get covered. Like, that's what the media's so, like, wrong and bad for. It's terrible.
I won't say they're wrong. They're just twisting it to.
Yeah.
fit their
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not. Okay. Yeah. He shouldn't have died. Obviously.
And obviously that's just an anecdotal thing that's not really, like, there's political violence on both sides right now with how bad things have been lately.
Sure.
And I don't know statistics to say what side is worse than the other. I don't think it's really worth getting into. I think it's just a reflection on how things are in America right now with politics and stuff. But here's another thing. So we were talking about, like, the anti-racist movement. And then with America being systemically racist, some people think that since America was founded on the backs of slaves and is inherently a racist system that's been doing racist things for years, that the best way to move forward is by, like, redoing America, like, starting over.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Yeah.
As in progressive communism?
No.
Well, I mean,
That's kind of what the BLM is endorsing here.
You're definitely right. I mean, it's hard to put a title on it because I kind of recently learned the definition between, like, different types of socialism.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that everyone in BLM even is like aiming at the same type of socialism. Whether some of them are like,
I'm just talking straight site and funding. If you go to their website and you scroll down, click a few things, and you can see everywhere all their money is going. It's going to a progressive socialism.
well,
like,
yeah,
area.
They want progressive candidates.
They do,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
they're far left. I mean, it's like what
But,
it is.
yeah, but they're not socialists. They're not socialists.
well,
This is like phase one though of it, like of the change.
You
I mean,
can
That's
say
an
that.
argument, I
You
guess.
can-
Like,
yeah.
but Hunter, one of the like founders of BLM, like said
I
he was
know.
a Marxist.
Yep. We talked about that.
Anytime I see any YouTubers that are in huge support of BLM, they're usually socialists or anarchists or something around that.
Okay.
Like, and I mean, yeah, there's liberals that support BLM too, but at the end of the day, I imagine that most of the liberals support BLM in the same way that I would support BLM, which is agreeing to the statement. Because we talked about how there's a statement that's Black Lives Matter that I hope many people in this country can agree to.
Yeah.
But then you have like the policies that they're actually backing. Like we could see Black Lives Matter become like a political party or something at this point. It's important to understand that their policies expand just upon like racial issues. Like it goes economically with these people.
It's true. I do think people are afraid of change, though. Like you were talking about.
Yeah.
These systems were found on the backs of slaves, and they were built.
Well, but that's
Institutionally,
viewing it. That's viewing it through a specific lens, though. Like, don't get me wrong. A lot of America's wealth was cultivated by slaves, but I can say that about any like developed, like, I guess, white country.
Yeah, but
Even-
what country has made the most progress towards change to fix those systems? Let's
I mean,
take a look
almost-
at Europe, for example.
Almost all of
They're
them
fine
have
with-
made progress in some way.
Yeah, but
Like America's made progress too.
I would well, getting rid of Jim Crow, of course, but like
I mean,
our
even
systems have
since
not
then,
have
it's been
not
getting.
remained or not been altered dramatically in any way. We can't even get a voting rights law passed or renewed, I should say, for political gain.
What do you-
It's been sitting on McConnell's desk, the Voting Rights Act of 1964. So what are we doing? We're just going backwards.
What's that do? Like add in more like voting locations and stuff like that?
Yep. Add in more voting locations, no poll taxes, like we're trying to implement, having to pay off a modern day poll tax, which is where you have to pay off court fees so that you can vote, speeding
That's-
tickets and whatnot.
yeah, that's not right.
I mean, I agree that there should be more access to people, and what Mitch McConnell's doing is clearly a scummy move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but it has to do with just what he thinks will get him to win, because he knows like
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of
good.
minorities are going to vote Democrat.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. It's a political move. And what has a lot of the stuff in the past been revolving around? Politics. Jim Crow is all about, it's a political law that was passed and making our systems inherently racist. And what have we done in 50 years besides put men and women's bathrooms and allow
Well, I mean,
segregation?
I mean,
and,
gays can marry. There's been workplace discrimination laws that have been like updating every couple of years now, applying to minority groups, to women, to trans people. Like America's made a lot of progress in the past.
But
10
what in
years.
our systems? Like what have we changed as a
Are
country?
we talking about outcome or the actual
Outcome.
rules here? Well, outcome's a harder thing to measure because at the end of the day, there's disproportionately more poor people than rich people in like any capitalist society, especially one like America.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, since the starting line was farther back for a lot of minorities after coming out of Jim Crow, there's less middle-class African-American families. But they still exist. And, I mean, it seems to be growing at the rate in which, like, I guess white people got out of poverty. They just started farther back, so there was, like, capitalism was able to be more predatory to them. Because, like, let's be real, capitalism gets you addicted to things. So you keep buying things, and if you have, like, several addictions that aren't in check with buying things, whether it be, like, cigarettes or even,
Is it
like,
harder for a white
frickin-
person to get out of poverty or a black person?
Well, I mean, okay, if I'm a white person getting out of... What's the pretext here? Like, do I have family members that weren't in poverty, or am I, like, trailer trash, like, trailer park boys type shit? Because if so, it's
Guess so.
probably equally hard to a degree.
Equally
Like-
hard, you think so?
I think so too.
Like, here's the thing, like,
Let's say you have a criminal record.
okay.
Both of them?
Both of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if they have a criminal record, yeah.
White people are 3 times more likely to get a job with a criminal record than a black person.
Okay, that's fair.
So, a lot of people in poverty.
Look, I agree that the criminal justice system does disproportionately affect African Americans versus white people.
That makes it hard to get out of poverty if you have a record.
I mean, I say this on the show all the time, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it just goes back to, what are a lot of these crimes that, like, we feel sympathetic for the people who commit them are? They're almost always drug crimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost always, like any other crime, I, like, wouldn't really feel bad for the person.
Mm-hmm.
But drug crimes, I feel bad for the person. And it just goes back to that rule being dumb. So maybe that is... And that rule oppresses people of all races.
Yep.
So...
Even though white people get significantly less jail time.
And look, I'm not saying we don't deal with the next increment of how to make things more even and more fair afterwards, but I feel like people are skipping a step. Can we really fix the system correctly if we don't start with, like, decriminalizing all drugs? Like, that's, like, the only way to do it. So that's why the main reason I just get a little upset and think that, even though that's a part of the platform for Black Lives Matter, you can tell that's, like, they put that a little bit on their back burner because they care more about the end game with their issues. Because, like Grant says, they do have economic preferences. And a lot of the people who are, like, in the movement now, higher up in Black Lives Matter now, have more political power than they've ever had. No doubt that's getting to their head to a degree.
Yeah. Continue, sorry.
Like, it just goes back to... I think you can have a problem with Black Lives Matter without having a problem with the black community. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would say, are you technically a racist if you don't support the movement? Or, like, I don't know how to feel about that, I guess.
Well, I support the movement as far as the
movement goes.
If
you don't support the movement, that's...
No, okay, I'm saying
organization.
the organization I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, obviously.
Movement.
But that's
I feel
the
like,
thing,
I
they
feel like the movement
they conflate the movement with the organization.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. That's what's kind of messing some people up here, because you can support one, like, you can be not racist 100% and then just not support what the organization stands for and, like, where all their money's going and what they're doing with that money, and it's just kind of a mess here.
Well, I'm gonna be real here. I don't think it's actually possible for anyone to not be racist 100%, because especially if we take it so far as to microaggressions.
Prejudice.
I mean,
don't say racist.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Prejudice.
Okay, the reason I'm saying racist is because if you try to use the word prejudice, somebody will be like, being prejudiced is a form of racism. Microaggressions are a form of racism. Any differentiation between how you would treat a white person, conscious or subconscious, from a black person, automatically comes to racist nowadays. That's how it's been redefined. I don't necessarily like that, but that's essentially the standard that we operate on now. And that's fine, but the racism that I think, like, you are referring to when you say most people aren't racist, I would call that extremely, like, problematic racism. Racism that is, like, discriminatory in a big way. Kind of like a make or break sort of thing. Like, if I'm somebody who's hiring people and I am, like, racist, that is a big deal.
Yeah, it should be.
It's more so of a big deal than somebody maybe, like...
Like Trump in the 70s. Didn't want to hire minority groups, and the Supreme Court took his case up and ruled against him.
Yeah, I guess like that.
I'm just saying.
Do you honestly believe Trump's a racist?
Yes, I do. Full-heartedly.
Okay.
He just signed in a law yesterday actually, that said that you can no longer build low-income homes in the suburbs if that city does not want a low-income housing in their area.
I mean, is that more of a hatred for minorities or more of a hatred for poor people?
Well, okay, let's think about the poor people. You're being simplistic here.
I'm not trying to be class reductionist, if that's what you're accusing me of being.
I think
I definitely see where you're going there. Yeah. I personally don't believe that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's not what it should be, I guess. Like, that's not a good build a sign at the time.
You want these people to shoot for that suburban lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem with low-income housing, personally. Like,
He does.
Other members in my family have a problem with it because they think it lowers property values, and there is like
Higher
studies that back that up. And yeah, like what he's saying. So like when people are wary of building these structures who live in the community, I like understand where it comes from. We can't act like there's no downside to building low-income housing.
No, that's not that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you're building a low-income housing in a suburban area with probably a good school district.
Yeah.
I think the school district and other factors in that nice suburban area have more to do with your home value than just a low income housing. I think it is a small percentage of your home value.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty small, and that's like why I'm not like. That's why I don't get worked up about it like a stereotypical Republican who's like, oh, low-income housing is going to ruin my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I really don't look at it that way. Like, I think there should be situations like that with, but that's the thing here. Like when people oppose things like that, do we automatically have to assume that people are opposing it for the racist reason, like wanting to keep the minorities out if they don't like that? That's what someone would assume. That's what someone would assume. Like what somebody who doesn't support income housing might think. But it could just be the petty thing of like being a penny pincher, which isn't any better. Well, it's better, but it's still not good. So the point I'm getting at is I think a lot of like conservatives, people like automatically jump to assuming a lot of their intentions, which many of which I disagree with, are completely motivated by race. Like I think it's almost always motivated by money for those types of people. And that's why I feel like both sides of the political axis are like talking past each other. Because for one side, it is more about like race and trying to advance minorities into the middle class, which is a noble goal. And for other people, it's people who are like struggling right now from the pandemic and everything going on are trying to hold on to the like little slice of wealth that they have right now.
Take this for example, right? So I live in St. Paul, right? In Hamlin Midway area. You guys know the Minnesota United, right? The Alliance Field.
Yeah.
So when that was built, so the Hamlin Midway is known as a pretty rough area with a high crime rate. The University Snelling is the deadliest intersection in Minnesota, statistically. Most stabbings. I don't know about guns.
Yeah.
But, so we try to stay away from night, all right? So when they built that field, my freshman year of college, we had all the mayor candidates talk about like what their plans were with the surrounding areas, right? In those low-income areas.
Did they tear down housing?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See?
because they wanted the fans to feel like more safe, and they wanted to clean it up.
That's wrong.
Then Mayor Carter came in, and then he it's still like not fully developed whatsoever. They're building they're building just like normal apartments right now. I'm not sure if they're low income or high income, but like, was that right of them to do, to get rid of all those low income housing, and like then what are those people going to do that were living there?
Now, I wonder if there was compensation involved.
There was. Yeah. There was heavy incentive for the stadium because
not for them, for the families that were living there.
Yeah, you don't know. I bet Minnesota definitely was.
Yeah.
Knowing them, but
but that still doesn't make it right. Absolutely not. But I feel like they got home value plus more money.
Because that was the controversy of 2017, 2018. Because a lot of people would not want it.
I remember hearing about.
Nobody wanted that stadium to go there. In that area, obviously.
It's not a good.
And in my opinion, it has not cleaned the area up whatsoever. I mean, it's a pretty dangerous area to be in. But it's not like the worst, I guess. Like, you know.
I'm just not a fan of like building big commercial buildings like in the middle of cities. Like a lot of times, like the stadium, like it just seems like a big waste.
It's a waste of my taxpayer dollars.
Well,
that's what my biology professor said freshman year.
You're out of the frame. You should
Sorry.
probably come back in.
My biology professor freshman year, when U.S. Bank finally got finished, like, God damn it, that freaking stadium! All my taxpayer dollars went to that, and I'm not gonna be able to go to one single game.
Well, do you think sports is dying?
No,
due to
it'll never die.
Due to our current condition, or what?
Yeah, well, NFL's viewership was going down anyways for the past, 5 years, at least.
I think people are saying, protest the NFL now. Like, do not watch NFL. No, I've seen tweets about that lately. It's kind of alarming. Like,
I don't think their ratings are going down. Their
viewerships have been going down for, 5 years. This is, a real thing.
Of what sport? Football?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know. Like,
I mean, maybe they shot back up in the past couple of years, but I know like a few years ago, South Park literally made an episode making fun of how their view count is going down.
Viewership increases 5% for 2019.
I don't know, maybe it had a little bit of a spike before COVID, but I thought it... Give me like the last 10 years.
Yeah. (2018).
Are you talking revenue or just like viewing?
Let's see.
I think it was views.
Viewers.
Viewers, okay. You wonder what's this season's gonna happen though, like with no fans and everything. Like how many?
Football will never. Yeah.
I agree. It's the biggest
Yeah.
sport in America.
Yeah.
It's never gonna
If
go
anything,
away.
baseball's in danger.
Yeah,
True.
it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, has America really identified as baseball being our pastime? And
Not
like,
anymore. I mean, they've gotten.
like,
They've
at
made
all
no
lately?
changes or
Yeah.
Well,
done anything.
how are you supposed to change a sport to make it more fun? Like,
Classical sport like that.
They change rules
they
every year.
changed
What are you talking
football.
about?
They changed basketball.
I don't know, I guess I'm not a sports guy talking out of my
Basketball
depth.
is a prime sport for just evolution or revolutionizing the game. Addition of a 3-point line,
Yeah,
more
different
athleticism
position.
in the
Yeah.
game, more positionless basketball nowadays, more
It's a
shooters.
different type of basketball, different
Yep.
type of defense, different
Yep.
type of offense style.
Football too. It's
Yeah, the game's
again,
evolved.
More
That's
more
interesting.
offense. Now, if you look at baseball, you have. I like how we're talking about sports now. This is nice. It's a nice little escape. Sid probably hates this.
I do, but that's okay.
If you look at baseball now, what do people want to see? They want to see strikeouts and home runs. So you juice the balls so that people hit more home runs.
Look at last year, home run
Yep.
records.
Yep. And then you get pitchers that can throw a lot harder and take a lot of pride in throwing hard.
Don't you think that's a perfect metaphor for like the political climate though? Crap, I just had it. It was people like to see home runs and people like to see people strike out.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah,
There you
that
go.
is a good metaphor.
Tying it
Yeah.
all together. What
Yeah.
he said.
Yeah, and now you have people who are pitching harder, if it will, with their rhetoric. And I think that's why we see, when we talked about our Overton window episode, about how, like, the window's not really creeping anyway, rather than stretching.
Yeah.
And everything from it's just basically a hatred for the status quo that is growing both with the populist left and the populist right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why more extreme ideologies are becoming exceedingly more mainstream lately.
Mhm.
And I don't know, man, it freaks me out, man. And because I know movements like this, regardless of what the end goal is, capitalize on current events and unrest which are actually affecting lots of Americans who don't care about this political game, like, of all races. And I don't know, they just crank it up to 11 with trying to sow unrest. And then it's dumb because, like, the government has incentive to participate.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I was defending cops earlier, but, like, the ones who, like, stir the pot intentionally, like, don't get off the hook.
True. Should we move on?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk? COVID?
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
COVID.
So what do we want to talk about with COVID? There's so
Well, I know
many-
Wisconsin just had something happen today. that
Oh,
we-
yeah, Wisconsin just has a
mandatory, like wear a mask law.
Yeah, everywhere.
Do you think that's gonna get repealed?
Given the state of our Supreme Court, there's a good chance, honestly.
Just like the last one.
Yeah.
Hey, we have less cases in Minnesota with a higher population, so that's
We
good.
have a higher population in Minnesota.
Mhm. Not by much, but it's probably a couple 100,000. Yeah.
Do we really? Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
My dad's not too happy about the mask law.
Oh my God.
I don't know if that's gonna play out because there's a lot
We
of people
should've-
that are anti-maskers.
I am along the lines, and I think I've made this obvious, that I think every state should have a mandatory mask law.
I mean, yeah, I have nothing against masks. I get that people are like, this is America, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, at this point, I want this crap to be over, and I think masks help. I
Yeah.
think anybody, like, in denial about that is like, I don't know. Plus, I've literally heard arguments from people that, like, masks look stupid, and that's why they don't want to wear them.
Such a dumb reason.
I know, man.
Trump
I know.
looks like a Lone Ranger in his.
Dude, I think Trump. I think Trump looks pretty cool in a mask. Not gonna lie, he looks like a DLC character for Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, it's the perfect game for him.
I think the baseball players look pretty cool in their masks. when they're just coaching, you know.
Yeah.
They're just playing.
I know masks look pretty cool. I put a bandana on and like act like I'm Antifa.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're in the weight room, they can't tell you if you're like you're like silly lifting face. You know, you're just like that stupid face you make when you're just
Yeah.
You can't see that with the mask, so
Yep.
that's a plus.
Yeah.
You
So
gotta incentivize it more, you know.
Yep.
You gotta get like discounts at stores for wearing a mask, you know. Maybe. I mean,
there's
Yeah.
a hefty fine, isn't there?
yeah, that's pretty good incentive. I mean, depends what store you're at, like Walmart's,
Yeah,
Target's,
yeah.
Costco's, things like that.
It's
There's
like 50. In Minnesota, it's like $50,000 fine if you don't.
This is
enforce it, isn't it?
a what fine?
A $50,000 fine if your company or business doesn't enforce
Yeah,
it.
as it should be.
That's interesting that you bring up like discounts and stuff. Some positive reinforcement instead of positive punishment, which is what we're operating on with
It should
fines.
be, shouldn't be politicized, is what I'm saying. Like a mask.
It
like
isn't. It shouldn't. Be.
I see
mean,
you liked
it
my
is.
tweet, by the way. Thank you.
you're welcome. I support the Two Commerce podcast. Yeah, come on now.
Yeah.
I try to like fair things that I agree with. I like hunters too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't understand what the point of politicizing an object. Okay, I do understand the point of it because if something's politicized, there's a reason why they're doing it, but the reason is almost always selfish for political parties and doesn't help people.
Good story about that. So I think his name's Louis Gomer, the representative from Texas who just got COVID.
You're leaning off the screen again.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that.
You can just scoot over
Yeah.
if you want.
The representative from Texas got coronavirus
Mhm.
because he refused to wear a mask on the House floor or
Sounds like Texas. Yeah.
yep in his office. Yep.
Stubborn.
He has a full staff that works at the Capitol building in his office, and the interns came out with some stories about what life is like working for him.
Mhm.
They say you get made fun of if you wear a mask. You get ridiculed, and you're told to take it off. And if they see you with a mask, that you'll get like a slap on the wrist per se.
That's pretty weird.
Yep. And they like really frowned upon just even the workers in that tight little office building or office even wearing masks.
Yeah, I hate to be part of that like cancel culture stuff, but I feel like a lot of the mask wearing is like generational. Like the boomers, like they'll disprove because they're so hard on what they
Yeah,
believe.
yeah.
They,
Yep.
Like I
That's
mean,
true.
it's like how do you get them to wear a mask? Like obviously, like I don't know. Even my parents, for example, like even during like the bad COVID, they have like their good friends over. Obviously, like they wouldn't wear masks and stuff. Like that's just like the typical stubborn old people, I guess. Like you could say 50s, 60s are old.
That's my dad too, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you do about them? I'm like, they're kind of the problem. Like, and they're more at risk than we are, and we're trying to be precautious.
And you can't get that in their head.
No.
It-
It's just they do them, we do us. You know.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, I just think old people are a lot of the problems with our country right now, to be honest. I don't want to come off as super ageist and divisive, but,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, man, like, generational culture does not start to mix at a certain point. Like, I don't know, I couldn't even imagine, like, talking to my parents, like, the same way in which I talk to, like, my friends who are, like, my same age.
Yeah.
I mean, I have more and more, but, like, I don't know, like, even slang nowadays is so weird, because, like, internet culture is bled into slang.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say yeet in front of my parents by mistake, dude.
Oh.
Not that it's bad, but it's like,
We're like, what the heck is
they,
that?
they actually have not called me out on it. But I'm wondering if they just, like, know what it means, but, like...
Okay. For example, Maricopa County. That's where my parents are living right now.
Okay.
Arizona.
Yeah. My dad refuses.
Really?
Hates wearing masks.
Isn't he very conservative?
No.
He's right leaning,
Is he?
but yeah, he's not hard right. That's kind of scary to look at. It's the county with the second most COVID cases in the country.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Not good.
Recent spike.
Hennepin. There it is. 17,000.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh. What else do we want to talk about? How about schools? You want to talk about schools for a little bit? We're going to talk about this next week in depth.
Yeah, you just give a little preview.
Yeah.
What's River Falls doing? Are you guys online or?
I'm mostly online except for 2 classes.
Yeah, I have one lab and one day that is like an optional face-to-face thing.
Oh, gotcha. Like as far as I know, I'm still all in person, but that's probably up to change.
Yeah.
You never know.
That's weird, mine are...
When do you guys start?
The second?
Lucky.
Yeah.
August 31 now.
Damn.
I know.
Yeah, my sister goes to Duke. They're starting a week early and ending Thanksgiving break. Yeah, which a lot of big schools are doing. I heard
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
That's terrible. I can't imagine being a college freshman going into college like this because you're not gonna have the
Yeah,
experiences.
she doesn't have a roommate.
Really?
That's gotta be the worst.
Yeah.
And once
Hey,
they
it can
get
be
there,
nice,
they
too.
have to quarantine for like 4 days, and then they start classes like the next day. So
Have to quarantine.
yeah.
Wow.
So they just gotta stay in their dorms?
Yep, and they get tested when they get there.
Really?
This
Yep.
is nuts, yeah.
So, yeah, they're gonna have to take it seriously. Otherwise, you're gonna see an outbreak in
Okay,
teachers,
no, but
students,
here's
seeing
my
in
point.
that.
Is it worth it?
I don't know. Well, we both know. We know from experience, online education is not nearly the same as in-person
No, it
education,
isn't.
correct?
It isn't at all.
But it's
Yeah.
what do you take priority, education or safety?
Yeah,
And-
but we're paying full price for this too.
But
Mhm.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I've been thinking about recently is like, I have a hard time like blaming young people, especially because I'm someone in the same boat who like wants to hang out with their friends and stuff still and like have a little bit of a life while this is going on because like I don't know, I'm not gonna be 21 again and neither is anybody else.
Exactly.
Like this is gonna like take some of the prime years of our life away.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird that boomers, like, care more about this, like, resisting it, than the people whose prime years are being taken by this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of the young people are taking this more seriously, like, are taking the real, like, hard sacrifice of sacrificing their, like,
College.
prime and their college. Like,
I feel like they're just not taking it seriously because we've been through a war. We all started up like most of our parents started out pretty poor, and if they like made some sort of money, they earned it like without like, playing
Yeah.
sports and had the same opportunities
Yeah.
that we had today that they gave us. So like I mean I get their perspective for sure. Like you got to understand that like our lives are significantly easier than them being raised in that time.
well,
Oh, are they significantly easier?
yeah.
Easier. That's a hot take.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know how this generation is the first generation to experience, or one of the first ones you could argue, like millennials. I guess we're all Zoomers,
Mhm.
but like, developing adulthood. Like, have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
No, not developing adulthood. Sorry, it's called emerging adulthood. That's what it's called. So, like before, like phases of development used to be like you'd be a child, and then you'd be like a teenager, and then you'd be like an adult. And most people who were like, after they finish high school, they're going out into the workforce, or they're like in our parents' generation,
Yeah.
they'd go out in the workforce, or they'd like go to college and they could work over the summer and actually pay for an entire year's worth of college.
Yeah, that's different.
And
Yeah.
like up through a minimum wage job that they had over that time, it was very easy to be set up to be an adult. There was the main thing is there was less people in the world, and when you have less people in the world, I mean, I don't know. Capitalism is less oppressive on the people in general. There's like less of a housing shortage due to that,
Yeah.
and a bunch of other factors that change over time. So now a lot of kids our age like are basically stuck being in this weird halfway place between being a kid and an adult right now. And there's really nothing you can do because even if you wanted to rough it, you can't do what your parents did because that option's gone now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have so much. Can't think of the word.
I mean, you could
So
still.
much value on a degree. And
Yeah.
then everyone
That our parents
who
did not have.
chooses an alternative route gets screwed because they don't have an
It's
degree.
not in
They
the
don't
system,
have.
yeah.
They don't have very many options.
Mhm.
Whereas the people who do choose the degree have trouble getting a job because they don't have experience, and each job requires experience.
We have classmates though that are working blue collar, didn't go to college,
Yeah.
are welding. They're making good money,
Yep.
and like that defies the system right there. Like there's those opportunities. Those blue collar jobs
Now
are
then-
going to pay you well. If you're in a union, for example, like the
Yeah,
benefits,
for sure,
the
for
benefits
sure.
are unreal.
That's the benefit of the union.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I also think though that I don't know. I guess I don't know enough to say that. But I feel like I would if that was me in that position, I'd be stuck.
It's
It would
not an
be
easy
no
place to be.
vertical movement up a bit, all horizontal.
Yeah.
I mean, you can once you get to like your
Be a management
apprenticeship
position and
or
keep
a
going.
master electrician or something like that, for example.
I mean, I'm still impressed by the amount of vertical movement I do see in like people who are like 5 years older than us, like where they were 5 years ago and where they got now.
Yeah.
I'd like to see if for like because we're kind of like on the older, I guess, slice of being Gen Zers, and then so that's like kind of that new generational cutoff. I'd like to see if it's the same for us
Yeah.
going in COVID's probably going to screw that up, though, and
Yeah.
make it different. I'd say before this, it would probably be the same boat. But, like, I don't think there was that, like, less opportunity for vertical movement for millennials. But I think it was a slower climb. You had to be in this place of limbo, this emerging adulthood longer. And if you were born into poverty and had no way to get into college, yeah, it's kind of game over and you're kind of stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, not entirely. Obviously, there's people who save and stuff, but you're at least behind. And it takes significantly more willpower to get out of that situation. But people still do it.
Yeah.
But the real question is, like, the ability to get out of the situation, is that something people are born with or, like, not? Because you could just argue that some people, like, need more help to get out of a situation like that.
And who deserves that help? How much help are you gonna
Yeah,
give?
I know.
So yeah,
That's-
it's bland, but yeah, you can go as far in depth as you need to in that.
I guess what I meant, like, if, like, going back to the value on a degree and choosing an alternative path, if I were in a union job, I would feel stuck, and I could only, in my opinion, move horizontally. Whereas if I wanted to move vertically, it would require that degree or 30 plus years of experience.
Yeah, but some people love that. They love their
No,
job
yeah,
where they're at. Like some people don't want to. Like,
absolutely.
they think that they're top because they're
Yeah.
happy, they're
True.
stable. Like I mean,
tons of people who are in the exact opposite.
And they're
boat, though.
making a
Mhm.
living. And
they have their own
Just-
house
yeah.
at this age. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's different perspective, I guess. Like, do I want my own house this age? Probably not. Like I'm happy
No.
with my roommates. I'm happy paying cheap rent in a big city. Like
do I want to grow up that fast? And
Yeah.
back to your other point about, like, being in limbo. It seemed, at our age, it seems so far away. Adulthood, like, in some sense, like, getting a full-time job and that job
Yeah.
that you've always wanted. It seems
And
so
in reality,
far
it's a
away.
year or two away.
Yeah.
That's
all,
nuts.
all I'm saying is, with bringing up the point about emergent adulthood, is, like, I don't necessarily think our generation is inherently lazier or we're not working as hard as the generation before us. The game has changed, and unfortunately the advice we're getting from the people who played the game before us is for a different set of rules, and that makes it very difficult. So I think that's also why you see things like suicide rates increasing. Even prior to COVID-19, our suicide rates for teens in the United States has been, like, raising for, like, the past, like, 10 years.
Yep.
And now it's only spiked with COVID. So I don't know, man. That has consequences.
Yeah, no question.
You get millennials get shit on all the time for being that lazy soft generation. I don't get why. Kind of bothers me, even though I'm not part of that generation. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Well, there's in
The-
the workforce right now.
the consequences that the boomers sort of created are going to be put directly on the millennials.
Mhm.
And the benefits that we get from potentially the millennials, we're going to get credit for.
Yeah.
Which,
Will we, though? I don't know, man. At what point will it just turn into millennials bashing Zoomers?
that could happen, yeah. It could go full circle, yeah.
And I mean, does the generation below us, like, are they gonna shit on millennials or are they gonna shit on Zoomers? Like, is anyone really, like, free? I think everybody has, like, their time where their generation will be, like, the shitters. I think it just happens.
Yeah, but I don't... That could come with age.
Yeah, it depends on, like, where you're going. If you're in an office workplace, for example, the
yeah.
CEO is a boomer and you're a millennial, you're probably going to get shit on as a millennial.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
when we get to, like, a certain point, like, say, when we're, like, 50, who's going to be that place to shit on us so we can't get promoted, you know? Like,
Yeah.
And obviously it does have a little bit to do with, like, the rules of the game that you're raised within. Because, like, the system does change, despite what you were saying earlier about the system having no change. The system has changed a lot throughout each generation for everybody. And I think that does... So when people say that, like, millennials and Gen Zers are lazy, I do see it to a degree. Because, like, working with, like, Gen Xers, many of whom were immigrants, like, when I was doing landscaping, like, these are people who go do this hard work every single freaking day, and I did it for a month. And, like, I don't know, man, not for me. And, like, also, like, people like my dad who, like, for fun, they do, like, yard work and stuff. Well, they say it's not fun, but they just do it anyways because they can't stand, like, not being productive.
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely something that doesn't exist in our generation, and a lot of or not to the same degree at the very
definitely.
least. Obviously there are outliers, but since I'm like one of those types of people who doesn't really want to do that sort of work all the time, my like time and my interests and what inspires me like goes into other things. When I talk about that stuff with that generation, they usually have no idea how to like my dad has a hard time thinking like abstractly about things, and I think a lot of the older generation does.
Yeah.
Us, and I hate to like slam it all on like meme culture, but I think that definitely like helped with like kind of the way that our generation looks at things in like a surreal kind of way, like, and like nihilism has like gone up through our generation and stuff.
I'd agree.
People are a lot more cynical about like, I don't know. I don't know too many people my age who are like open Christians who are really into God. In fact, the few that I know, few that I know stick out as like caricatures and outliers, but that used to not be weird. So there's all this stuff that gets lost that contributed, I think, to that Puritan work ethic, if you will, of the boomers, that they basically are mad at the Zoomers and the millennials for not having, but the millennials and the Zoomers have like different traits that didn't even exist and develop in a large sense in the boomer generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Different factors that they have to overcome too.
So I don't think Zoomers will ever become a mirror image of the boomer. I don't think it'll happen. But that being said, if the system changed again, there could be another conflict between like when we're like 60 and whoever the 20-year-olds are at that time. Maybe the world has changed so much that they look at things a particular way that goes way over our heads. But is that really the same issue shifting down later in the generations? I don't think so. Because I don't think that conflict will be over the same thing. Will it be over us calling them lazy? Like, will they be lazier?
Probably.
I mean, maybe, but like,
It's all about how you're raised, I guess.
Yeah.
And who raised you? Like,
I mean, yeah, a lot of that has to do with the thing, but like when looking at it from an aggregate, because there is trends in the different personality types that like increased over the generations versus decreased, and like what types of people they are. That's why there's a stereotype for our generation and a stereotype for the other generations. And there's a few stereotypes. It's not just one fits size, but there's different archetypes where their presence like fluctuates.
Yeah.
I don't think the conflict will be the same because we never had that Puritan work ethic. Like, that's also why when you see millennials with kids, they're like kind of chill parents too. A lot of their kids, like a lot of them are.
it's definitely a different style than what we had, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think the conflict, which, there'll probably be another generational conflict, I don't think it'll be based around the fact that you don't work in a traditional blue-collar way and you're distracted with technology. Because our generation will never hate technology. We were raised on it.
Yeah.
So that whole, like, big divide amongst that is going to be gone. On the Puritan work ethic, it's going to be gone. It's going to be around different values, but we can't really say which ones now.
That's true.
I wouldn't say we were entirely raised on technology though. Like we were still at the age where like
We're in like the verge.
yeah, we're like the first ones to go through like in high school. It's like when I got my first iPhone, not till high school, but now kids are starting to get like 6th grade and then
I was getting bullied.
iPads at they're 2 years old. Like we never had that. We were playing sticks in the mud still. Like you're still like the boomers, you know.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see the difference between those guys and these.
Economically, we looked at. Go back to the lazy point about millennials. Economically, they had to go through 2 very intense recessions, and they get put on the back burner that when it comes to being laid off because they're going to lay off the newest workers, the freshest meat.
Freshest meat.
Yeah. So I think also when it comes to like housing value, like you're looking for a house and the housing market crashes, that's kind of a problem. You get laid off, you kind of fall into a little bit of a lower class lifestyle.
Yeah.
You get looked at differently. That's something boomers, maybe growing up, but that's something boomers didn't really have to overcome, a recession like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 recessions, I should say. This one.
Just wars, no recessions.
Well, Vietnam.
Is there a recession alongside that?
Huh? No, he was just saying just wars, not recessions. Vietnam.
Sorry, I had to, right?
Vietnam,
Boomer war.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Iraq, the Middle East stuff, of course. But we're still going through that, and millennials are
there was
still
babies
there.
at the time, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying they're still involved with that.
Yeah.
It's not like they're not involved. And they're still listing and stuff like that, and we have.
So what impact of living through wars do you think had on the Boom.
Ask him. That was
Yeah.
his point.
Went back to the wars.
Yeah,
It's definitely a different one than a recession, obviously. But
I guess you get this picture in your head of what your kid is doing at 18 versus what you were doing at 18. What was I doing at 18? I was storming the jungles in Vietnam. What's your kid doing at 18?
that's gonna affect the rest of your life, whether you
Playing
like it.
Fortnite, yeah.
Yeah, like that's not. Yeah, that's being raised our generation. We're spoiled because of that, I guess. If
Yeah.
you want me to look at it.
So, yeah, because of Vietnam, yeah, we're spoiled.
Well, any other wars, obviously. Yeah, all right, not what I meant, but like, yeah, like we know that's gonna change your mindset and the way you go about your career and the way you live your life and how much you value things.
Are we spoiled because we didn't go through a war? Or are we spoiled because we have Fortnite and stuff like that? Like, what side of it makes us spoiled? Is it
Both.
Is it?
Either you can make a case for either.
Yeah, but are we really spoiled because we didn't deal with the negative stimulus of being thrown in a war?
No.
Like, I
It's
don't
just
really.
good timing on our part. We're
I
being
think
born.
Does that mean we have good luck, or does that mean the people who got thrown in the war have bad luck? Do you go to?
They
Yeah,
have bad
yeah,
luck,
yeah.
and I think we reap the benefits, the lessons that they learned. Like, we're never going
Yeah.
through this shit again.
Pretty
We're
much.
never
Yeah.
gonna
We're
have
never going to war again.
No, we're
World
never.
War III's
we're-
coming next
we're
month, I
never
hear.
having another Vietnam.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
never
yeah.
having a. Yeah.
You never know. North Korea could pop any minute.
Well, Vietnam is different than North Korea, in my opinion.
It's
Geographically, a little bit.
No, yeah.
Situationally, it's
Yeah.
a lot too, because you got to remember another thing you got to remember about Vietnam that a lot of people like forget is there was a lot of American business people over in the capitalist part of Vietnam that didn't want to be taken over by the Viet Cong, that was working with business owners
Yeah.
in that like section of Vietnam who wanted the U.S. government to come in and save them.
Yeah. Another difference: North Korea has nukes now.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we're
Vietnam did not.
And we also have a
I'm
danger.
kidding, Sid.
No, I actually this is interesting.
We
you
also
can say
have
something, but I
a
have a
danger
good.
of, I think, more of. Why do we talk about war now?
I don't know.
Biological warfare, more than anything. Like, I think that's gonna become a problem in the near future.
You mean like China releasing some sort of virus on us?
No, not like that. Yeah. No, not like that. See.
You're telling me that so like I'm okay with the bat theory that it was like a wet market came out of a bat and it was just like people being negligent eating like animals that shouldn't be eaten for like sanitary reasons and that's why the virus happened. But you're telling me that I guarantee you like every government that has the capability to have done this is doing this. That no government is grabbing like some of the COVID and like playing with it and trying to like China is definitely doing that. I think we're doing that too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, I don't think if you're getting to this point, I don't think COVID is a lab-made virus.
I saw a video that it was, and that Fauci was. I mean, I watch a lot of videos, all right?
No, that's fair.
it's
That's
not-
fair. I'm just.
it's
yeah, I
not,
got you.
because-
I've
Did they
seen
prove
similar
it?
shit.
Did they prove it?
The CDC. I know they're
I
investigating.
mean, isn't there a biology? Fuck, I can't.
They
talk.
investigate. Yeah, look it up.
Yeah, there's a virus lab in fucking Wuhan, and not only, and it didn't have to like come out of the lab. Like, I don't know. Isn't it possible that the bat could have been infected by waste or something? They're not exactly the most careful over there.
That's true. Yeah.
And obviously, that's a theory that can't be proved. I really don't think it's worth proving whether China did this intentionally, because chances are they didn't. But I mean, the only reason I even bring up China and like biological warfare. Well, first of all, you brought up biological warfare, but the only reason I'm bringing China into it is there's no way they're not trying something with this virus, because I think we are too, and I think Russia is too, and I think anybody with any capability is like trying to make this into a weapon, and it's not going to be something that's going to be used. I think it's going to be one of those weapons that by having it and not using it, it's the most use to you. Because you brought up nukes, and nukes are hold up, nukes are actually an amazing invention when you think about it. Terrible with what the destruction they cause.
Yeah.
But it's basically like a big hammer you hold over your opponent to say, don't do anything that would make me want to bring this hammer down.
Yeah.
So it's effectively caused everybody to hold hammers above their heads. And which is like scary, because if a mistake got made, everybody brings their hammer down and everybody dies. Mm-hmm. And that's awful. But at the same time, I really don't think like war in the way that we knew it pre-World War II would have gone away if nukes didn't get invented.
Definitely not, yeah.
Because we were going to drop a nuke on Korea again. But then right before we did that, Russia got nukes and they said, don't you dare.
What'd you find, Hunt?
I just said it. The early hypothesis thought it may be linked to a seafood market. But
Via CDC?
Johns Hopkins.
I mean, it probably was linked to a wet market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those wet markets have created many viruses, swine flu, for example.
Yeah, I mean,
They're dangerous and
I
very bad.
do you? Okay, I know it's like getting China to listen to international law is hard, but do you think it's worth trying to get a push to like internationally ban those types of markets? Because I definitely think that's like worth
I
it.
do think it's reasonable.
Is there a
but
push for this? Like, it amazes me if there isn't. Actually, no, it doesn't, because I know why they're not going to push for it, because all our media is paid off by China.
Yeah.
But
how many people are gonna suffer because of that? There is a
people really
there's
just
a
need to stick their
larger
necks
wealth
out.
there's a larger wealth gap in China than there is in the United States, and you have a large impoverished.
That's
population.
interesting. I hear a lot of like more radical socialists and borderline communist people say that, like, praise China for the fact that they've been getting rid of wealth inequality.
No, they haven't. They have.
I guess my whole thing is I don't understand why people don't understand that every problem with America is, maybe not every problem in America, but every problem that's being like put on center stage right now, like police brutality and like government overreach and a bunch of other things, wealth inequality. Like,
Yeah.
China has a worse version of all of that. And that's not to say that we shouldn't focus on America, but I just don't understand the media treatment. It's basically what I'm getting at. It really does. Because I feel like China would want our media to act in the way that they're acting now. Like, not covering them, like, as harshly as they could.
They gave
Well-
CNN $2 million just to be quiet.
Yeah, and also they, our media treats the United States like they're the world's #1 enemy. And yeah, the United States, don't get me wrong, we should take this shit seriously. The United States is basically like a loaded gun. You have to know what we're doing in order to wield this power. And yes, it appears America does not have their shit together. So I understand why people are wary of America right now. I don't blame any of those people. But I guess I don't understand why the other gun on the table, i.e. China, isn't like being treated the same way.
I don't know. I don't think we have enough internal investigation because, like, a lot of journalists are
And now they got,
validated there.
now they got like concentration camps in China. These have been going
Oh,
on
yeah.
for a while,
Yeah.
but they've been bringing.
Apparently, Trump called President Xi and said, "I like what you're doing with those."
I'm sure that's not what he
Okay,
did,
yeah. How
but-
did source on that?
Let's find it. I don't know. I don't.
I like what you're doing with the concentration camps, President Xi.
quote unquote Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I don't think you said that. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Did you see the BBC anchor confront the Chinese ambassador? Did you see that clip, Hunter?
No.
So basically, this BBC anchor had the like English to Chinese ambassador, and it's the ambassador that like works with China and like talks to England, like it's China's ambassador for England in the UK, and he was showing him footage of the Uyghur population who they're like bringing into facilities right now with shaved heads being led into train cars. And the guy just started talking about the beauty of the area and pretended like he wasn't seeing what was in front of him. And just kept playing the denial game, and it's like seriously disturbing.
That was from Bolton's book. That's what it was.
I don't believe John Bolton, bro, and I don't know if you should either.
No,
I'd be concerned if you did.
Trump said that Xi should go ahead with building the camps, which Trump thought was exactly the right thing to do. We'll never know.
No,
No, I don't
think
believe
that was
it.
said.
Of course, you're not gonna think what it's saying.
Well, I'm just
Yeah, I'm
saying.
kidding.
Of course, you
Well,
don't believe it, all right?
Bolton's like the most unreliable source in like anything, in my opinion.
Why? Because he held out for money? Because he held out the information for money?
Okay, well, obviously that's a little naturalistic of like humans being out for themselves, obviously.
Yeah.
It's still scummy though. It can be like following the rule of like what is best for me and still be like highly immoral,
Yeah.
which this definitely is. And
Yeah.
not only that, like let's think of John Bolton's actual agenda when it comes to politics. Like what he wants for the United States.
A war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And am I supposed to believe anything? This guy literally lied to get us to invade Iraq. Like, am I supposed to believe anything he says?
No, it's true.
And at the end of the day, a Biden administration would be more hawkish in the Middle East than I think a Trump administration would be.
Hawkish.
Yeah.
Explain.
Okay. Like, have you heard the term hawkish before?
No.
I have not either.
It's I'm trying to think of. It's basically like keeping a military presence in a lot of areas, kind of like a hawk, and staying by and protective, which can be good in some scenarios, but being overly hawkish, it's like the same argument that a lot of people use against the police. You have like a militarized force in an area, and it doesn't really help things. It continues to destabilize it. Also, we got to remember that what we're doing with our hawkishness in the Middle East isn't the same goal as the hawkishness with the police, rather, because the police are trying to at least maintain a community. We have goals. We're like grabbing things, taking care of people, and doing all sorts of covert operations
Yeah.
over there. So that's
Yeah.
why like hawkishness is worse. Like, I don't know. I think that Biden's administration would be more interventionist overseas than Trump's would be.
I don't know.
Maybe we'll find out. Maybe.
I mean, I would make the argument that, so don't get me wrong, like Trump is still helping Saudi Arabia with their genocide in Yemen. But guess what? The U.S. has been doing that for longer than just Trump. This has been like a agreement between us and Saudi Arabia for a while. And there's a little bit more to it because originally we were like protecting them in the Gulf War, which was also good for our business owners because they were in on the oil with the Saudis.
Yep.
But like I don't know, man. I don't trust John Bolton's opinion because at the end of the day, he just wants the control of the Middle East for profit, for the oil, for his manifest destiny that he probably believes. You
Does
know
he
what I
have
mean?
financial implications with the oil? Like, why would he want the oil?
Okay, well, he doesn't even need He doesn't even need to be tied up in the oil. He could be like, have money in a defense contractor. He could have money in like literally anything.
It's true.
And not only that, it could just be other political allies, because like we know what happens in politics. It's not like one guy with his policies and what he wants to do with his constituents. It's him and his entire team. And this goes back to groups making politics messy, because you can never do what's good for your constituents. You have to do what's good for your whole team, and even if it means screwing over your constituents, because otherwise you won't have any power.
Yeah.
And then you can be like, oh, what do you want me to do? Just bail on my team? And then that seems like a pretty good defense. But if we keep just letting this happen, no change really gets done. I don't know. Like, say what you will about Trump, but at least he's like playing on a different team than like John Bolton's playing on, which has been the same team that's been in power for decades. That's why I don't trust anything he says. He just wants to keep it. He wants a war. It's like pretty shameless. He'll make Trump look as bad as he needs to because he would prefer a Biden administration for this. Like, Hillary's foreign policy would have been more interventionist in Syria. She talked about that in her campaign.
Mm-hmm. All right, so should we talk about the election?
Yeah.
Just for a short bit, and
Yeah.
then wrap her up.
I think this segues well. Like, I think a lot of people are carrying less, like we talked about last week, about foreign policy than people have ever before.
Yeah.
But I think it's still a factor in considering a leader, and I really don't think Biden's foreign policy is going to be very good. Like,
Depends on who he surrounds himself with.
it's true. We gotta see that VP pick, which,
It's not just the vice president.
yeah, but once you see the VP pick, that's going to give you a better idea of who's going to make up the cabinet, in my opinion.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
he'd be bringing in a younger like coalition in with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, obviously Biden's going to bring in some career politician like Biden bros into his cabinet with him,
Mm-hmm.
but he's probably going to take the VP from a younger, possibly more progressive, like Democrat.
Yeah.
And their people that are like tighter with them in politics are also going to like bleed into the administration.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw the same thing with Trump. Like, I'm sure a lot of Mike Pence's friends got in on the administration too.
Yeah, that cabinet is something else.
And you're also going to see a lot
your
of
thoughts, Remo. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
Good enough with that.
I was just going to say you're going to see a lot of Democrats who were running in the primary going to the cabinet too. You saw the same.
I don't think so.
Really, like none,
Yeah.
because Trump took people from the
I
who
don't.
were running into
I
his
don't
cabinet.
think you'll see like a lot of people.
I think you'll see Pete
No.
if Biden wins.
I don't think you'll see Pete as Secretary of Defense.
You don't think Pete's going to be anywhere in that administration?
No.
Why do you say that?
I think because he wants to. Maybe I'll change my mind here. Just because he wants to build himself up so he can run again. But
Wouldn't it be better to be in
a cabinet, maybe. I think he will run for governor though.
That's possible. I mean, it really depends on what he thinks the best move for himself is.
Yeah. I don't think he'd be asked. I don't think they really liked each other.
Pete had like more in common with Biden than a lot of the other people.
Yeah,
on
but
stage.
like I don't think they liked each other.
Very possible. I mean, I don't know. Does anybody like Biden as a person?
Does anybody like Trump as a person?
Not really. Do you think all the people? And also, you saw what happened at the end of 2016. All the people who were shitting on Trump like flip-flopped after he became president because that's what you do. And they asked to be in his administration.
True. I think he'll go the safe route with someone more experienced. I'm curious about his education pick.
Yeah.
We don't need a billionaire as a Secretary of Education.
Definitely not.
That has never been in a public school in her life.
Jeff Bezos.
Do you think there should be qualifications you should have for cabinet positions?
Absolutely, yeah.
What is the qualification right now?
Be friends with the president?
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, there's nothing like...
Rex Tillerson was
No age?
CEO of Exxon.
Maybe ages, but I have
CEO
no
of
idea.
Exxon, and what was he? The
Exxon?
gas.
Yeah, I know
Oh,
Exxon, yeah.
Yeah, and then Goldman Sachs guy going into Treasury.
Yeah, and what was Tillerson's position though?
I don't know, man.
I thought it was environment. I honestly thought it was.
That might sound right, but I also know he had a nuclear guy going into environment too.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, man. I've yet to see the nuclear lobby come in and absolutely dominate the energy competition as a result of that. So, like, I don't know. I always regretted the fact that the United States pulled away from our nuclear program. I think we'd be in better shape if we stuck with it. I think a lot of accidents like, what's that island called? There was an island, it was like something Mile Island or something.
I don't know.
I don't know, but there's basically a radiation leak where some gas escaped. And nobody even got hurt. There was no meltdown because there being like 2 or 3 safety mechanisms. Like the first 2 failed, and I think there was still like 2 or 3 more. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot in nuclear plants. It got caught on like the 3rd mechanism. But then America like took a hard like turn from nuclear after that, and it's just lame in my opinion. I think we would have been in better shape if we
Yeah.
hadn't. Do you think solar and wind is the future, Hunter?
Probably.
I mean, yeah.
Of 100% all energy source or what?
I mean, it'd be nice to have it at some point. It's just hard for me to imagine right now. That's not
Yeah, that's
feasible with the
crazy.
current technology.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there. That'd be nice.
It's also a problem with the batteries too, like battery storage. Like, so like when some of the European countries that were trying 100% solar, they would run into a problem where they would get more power during the day than their batteries could hold, and then they'd run out of it too quick at night.
Yeah.
Definitely some
I
flaws to work
think
on.
there's definitely going to be more innovation there. I think it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
I say by the year 2070.
Jesus. I hope not.
You think it's before that?
I mean, we set goals for 2050.
Dude, there's supposed to be flying cars in 2012, right?
Okay,
I was upset.
That was a meme.
Yeah, the Cubs were supposed to win that.
Yeah, what the heck?
They were close.
Yeah.
They were close.
Yeah.
We should have known the apocalypse was coming when the Cubs started doing good.
Sure. Yeah. All right, should we wrap her up then, or do we want to talk about anything else about the race?
I think we should wrap it up.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a good episode. We talked about a lot. Thanks again for coming on. Did
Thanks
you
for
enjoy
having
your
me, guys.
experience?
Yeah, I had a great time talking to you guys. Yeah.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Glad you liked it. Thanks for listening to the Two Commoners podcast. You can listen to us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. YouTube, please like and subscribe. And see you next week.
See you next week.
See you next week.